Don't you just hate it when you spend hours grinding a game, only to lose all your progress when you close it? Well, hate no more, because my game doesn't even have hours of game, because I've spent the past month and a bit adding in saving and loading, settings, as well as a functional main menu. Here's how I went about it. Hey guys, quickly before the video starts, I'd like to thank you all for 10k subs. Your encouraging comments and constructive feedback are much appreciated, along with the name suggestions which I'll reveal later. Anyway, onto the video, and what better way to start than with saving and loading. If someone came up to you right now and asked you how to store the data for an entire playthrough of a game, what would you tell them? The correct answer is that you wouldn't. Really, you only need to store the changes you made, but for simplicity's sake, I'll just be storing everything. The file size doesn't matter too much in my case, as a complete playthrough will only ever be a few megabytes, and we aren't in the 70s anymore. On a more technical level though, there are two main ways of storing the game data. Plain text in a format such as JSON or YAML, or raw binary. The latter is generally more space efficient and slightly harder, although definitely not impossible, to tamper with, which can be a good thing if you need to store large amounts of data semi-securely. Human readable formats, on the other hand, are much better in many situations. Firstly, it's way easier to handle the deserialization of the data, as there are already libraries built to do pretty much everything for you. And secondly, it's less susceptible to issues if the structure of the data is changed. For my use case, I decided that JSON would be the easiest way of handling it, as my worlds are just one complex data structure, so the whole thing was really just a case of deciding what needed to be saved. Loading the data in though was a bit more difficult, and I did encounter a few interesting errors. Overall though, I found saving and loading to be surprisingly simple, so it was time to move on to the main menu. I would love to draw some proper art for the backgrounds at some point, but I don't think it's really worth doing just yet, so instead I went for this infinitely scrolling camera with a simple blur applied. As for the menus themselves, I wasn't really sure what to do, so I kind of just went with the same style as the rest of the game. The only thing I did really have an idea for was the main menu, which was going to have these pointy buttons that slid off screen when pressed, and I'm actually really happy with how smooth it looks. All of these animations are done solely with DoTween, by the way, which I'd strongly recommend checking out if you haven't already tried it. Anyway, this is starting to sound like an ad, so I'll move on now. I figured the world selection screen was probably the most important one to get done, as currently I had to type the world name in the editor, so I messed around a bit with a few designs before landing on this concept. Getting the bold font drawn for the titles, by the way, was so annoying and took like 3 whole days to set up. But I don't think me complaining would make a great video, so I did eventually get it all working, and setting up the buttons was pretty straightforward. The new world thing at the bottom still did nothing though, so it was time for another menu, and this one was a bit harder to design. See, the world creation screen doesn't actually need to be very big. All it really needs is input fields for the name and the seed, but if I did just that, it would be kind of tiny. I could of course just scale everything up, but then all the pixel sizes would be messed up. In the end, I decided to just add this large icon drop down and a slightly oversized create button. I'm not entirely happy with the finished result and honestly think I kind of preferred the concept, but it does the job. Settings anyway, they're kind of important since not everyone plays with the exact same setup. Some people like weird keybinds and some people are hardly able to run Chrome. I won't waste your time going over what every single one does. They're pretty much the same as you'd see in any other game, and the UI isn't particularly exciting, apart from this slider which actually looks kind of nice. Implementing the keybind seemed really daunting, but it actually wasn't. The whole system is just one large dictionary of actions to key codes, and everything else was simply a case of replacing any constants in my codes with the variable names. Anyway, that's actually about it for the menu. Or is it? If you're in my Discord server or saw my community posts, you'd know that there were 2 rounds of voting for my game's name, both of which have concluded. The results of the final vote were very close, but I can now officially announce that my game will be titled Arbanir. For the title visuals, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted, but knew I wanted to incorporate a tree into the design. I searched around a bit for some inspiration and settled on this design here. With that drawn though, and quite a few more bugs fixed, everything was more or less done, and I will say that the game is finally starting to feel playable. As for the topic of the next video, as I'm turning 16 in around a month, the next video will focus on improving the game in time for the demo. The product you see there won't be remotely like the final product, as I do want to make a few major changes, but more about them in the future. Either way, hopefully you enjoyed the video. I am aware that it might not have been the most interesting topic, but at least you can see that the game is taking shape. Every like and subscribe is much appreciated, and feel free to leave any feedback you have. That's about it for today though. See you all in the next one.